customer experience is new. Customer service has been around a long time, and there's a difference.
This is Jeff Standridge, and this is the Innovation Junkies podcast. If you want to drastically improve your business, learn proven growth strategies, and generate sustained results for your organization, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Innovation Junkies podcast. Hey guys, Jeff Standridge here, and welcome to another episode of the Innovation Junkies podcast. How are we doing, partner?
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Sitting here on a not sunny February day, watching the ice come down and hoping the power stays with us. But all is good. Just another day in February in the South Central U.S.
Yeah, kind of rough out there. We've got about 1.5 inches of ice where I am.
Yeah, and you know what they call this in the North? Like
What's
every
that?
day of the week.
Common occurrence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for us, there's a run on the milk and the bread and the chili mix at the grocery stores, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, we got a great show today, Jeff. We are going to be welcoming Stacy Sherman. She's an award-winning certified customer experience corporate leader, keynote speaker, author, podcaster, and founder of DoingCXRight. She accelerates customer loyalty, referrals, and revenue fueled by engaged employees. She's been doing this kind of work across multiple industries for over 20 years. Stacy, it is a pleasure and an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So now tell our listeners where you're located.
I am in the Garden State of New Jersey. We get a bad rap in Jersey. Don't know why. Maybe because of Snooki. Nothing to do with Snooki in my life, but yes, New Jersey.
How's the weather?
How tired do you get of people asking you what exit you live on and off the terminal?
Yeah, I actually could have just started with that, but yes, it is a common occurrence. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of my career I lived in Maryland and had lots of friends from New Jersey, and that was I know they got tired of it, but they were always pretty good humored about the whole thing. So, but speaking
Absolutely.
of random musings, and to kind of get a little bit back on topic, we like to start before we get into kind of the meat of the matter with the random musing. And as you reflect on your own history, what's one leadership lesson that you can talk about from your parents that was meaningful to you?
Absolutely. It's showing up even when you're the minority in the room. And what I mean by that is my mom was one of the first women on Wall Street as an options trader. And at that time, I remember visiting her as a kid, and there was no women. There really weren't any women, and never mind petite women in the room. Um, and so, yeah, I didn't realize then that as I do now that she was a trendsetter, and the easy path would be not to go in that field at that time. But she did. She showed up and she conquered and very successful.
Very good.
No, that's great. Jeff Standridge, what about you?
So I grew up in a blue-collar family, and when I was 13, my dad talked me into taking the money I had saved from doing odd jobs, mowing grass, hauling hay, those kinds of things, and buy a car. So I bought a 1950 model Ford car, and we started restoring that together when I was 13 and a half or so. And I remember one day I was working on something on the car. I mean, we did everything to it, everything except the upholstery. We just learned how to do, including body work and paint. And I was rushing around to do something. I don't remember what it was. And my dad said, he said Jeffrey. I was referred to as Jeffrey at the time. He said, Jeffrey, if you don't have time to do it right, when do you think you're going to have time to do it over? And that has stuck with me, for what, 50 years? No, probably not 50 years, 45 years. If you don't have time to do it right, when do you think you're going to have time to do it over?
No, that's great.
How about you, Jeff?
That's great. Yeah. My dad was was a career command pilot in the Air Force, 3 war veteran, and he grew up on a wheat farm in Kansas. Lots of life
Mhm.
lessons. And his history is one that someday maybe I'll write about. But one of the things that was really compelling, he used to tell me, is if you want to do well at leadership, you have to realize you're always on parade, and that all the people that you work with and work for are watching you. And so set a good
Mhm.
example, because it
Very good.
matters.
Mm.
It matters a lot. That was,
Man, we could do an entire episode on just those 3 leadership lessons, right?
I think so. I think
And,
so.
Stacy, we'll talk about your blog a little bit later, but you actually wrote a blog topic on the 10 lessons from growing up with a Wall Street, mom, and so, I encourage all of our listeners to go read that. So we'll talk about where they can find that a little bit later.
Sounds good.
So, yeah, so tell us about you, customer experience. Talk about what customer experience is, what it is to you, what it is maybe in the industry, and how you go about it, and obviously a little bit about you leading up to that.
Yes, so I've been in corporate for a very long time, small companies, big companies, and customer experience is new. Customer service has been around a long time, and there's a difference. Um, I'll go into that. But to say that my background has always been in sales and marketing, and I fell into CX, customer experience. So when you think about customer experience, it is the journey that customers go on and interact with brands. It's how they learn, become aware of a company. It's the buying experience. It's how they get and use the products or service. So there's all these micro moments, how they pay their bill and how they get help. The get help is the customer service as we traditionally know it to be. And so any moment in that journey, if any point is hard, difficult, unsatisfactory, customers will leave and they will tell
Mhm,
others.
mhm,
So I am passionate about and have taken the time to do and learn in practice how to actually know that you're delighting your customers at those micro moments. How do you measure it? How do you drive a culture where employees feel that they own the customer experience from back office to front line? That's where my career has gone. And the principles, the framework is the same across companies and industries. It's just personalized. That's the difference. It makes sense?
It does. And how do you? When you said something pretty instructive there, that was like, how do you start with or drive a culture in the company that values customer experience and puts that customer journey kind of front and center? Sometimes that requires transformation. So how do you really do that?
Mm, great question. You're right. It requires change management. It requires resilience because many times companies are very focused on process, internal ways, internal decisions. And so customer experience is about outside in, thereby, you have to have the champions, the leaders, executives at the top who are really focused on putting the customer first and driving employee engagement. It starts at the top, but then also it's the bottom up too, top down, bottom up, everything in between. And there are obviously a lot of ways to do that. I'll give you one example. So the executives at the top have to make sure that the customer experience topics are at every meeting agenda. And it has to be a conversation, bringing customer feedback to the meetings and all talking about what did the customers say? What's a pain point? An action planning process and humanizing business is what I like to say. It's got to be part of every agenda. So when that happens, then everybody is really marching to the same tune.
So you're talking about these touch points with your customers. I remember years ago reading a book by Jan Carlson, I believe it was, Scandinavian Airlines, where he called them moments of truth. And he literally went through the organization and counted the interactions that people had with Scandinavian Airlines and the opportunity to either wow them or frustrate them, and referred to those as moments of truth. Have you ever come across that in your work?
Every single day.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
actually the point of customer experience, where it is about the different points of interaction with a brand,
Mhm,
and really digging deep into the customer feelings, the customer satisfaction, the level of effort. So to make it real, for example, if I'm trying to buy on a company website, I give my credit card and it declines the
mhm,
form for some reason. That is going to be an example where I may not try again. I just leave. I don't even tell you.
mhm. Right.
That's a moment of truth.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. And I've had those experiences. I use a very common online payment platform. How's that? And there's one particular person that I pay to do some work for me who's out of the country, and every single time I attempt to pay them, I get a declined and I have to go enter a code and what have you. Now that's where a potential for a good customer experience, my credit card company doing an anti-fraud kind of warning for me to have to punch in a code and actually retry the transaction again. But that opportunity to delight me or to wow me has turned into a frustration for me because they don't remember, that I'm paying this person, and every single time I pay them, I have to go through this decline process.
Exactly.
So good
Yeah,
intentions, what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? They have
with
great
good intention.
intentions.
No, you're Jeff. You're exactly right on that, and that sort of friction that occurs will tend to give you an inclination not to use that platform. A good example of a positive experience is there's a company that allows in fractionalized residential real estate investing called Arrived Homes, based in Seattle. Um, they make it extremely easy to part
Mm,
with your money to invest. I mean, they've got all the controls and there's all the security, but it's just so easy to buy fractional interest in homes when they come available. There's not a lot of annoying process you have to go through. It's very few clicks. It's very easy to e-sign documents. It just works, and it's remarkable. Your inclination to actually use a platform like that and have good feelings about it is so much higher when that friction is low in the customer experience. It's really a true point.
Which is why it's important that people institute measurements into their CX practice. NPS, Net
mm,
Promoter Score, is a very
mhm.
common one, but not the only one. You have to dig deep into how easy or difficult is it to work with your brand, to get help when they need. And it's those micro moments you're talking about really matter with ease of use. So NPS is not it alone.
So
Talk
tell
about
us a
some of
little
the
bit.
others. What are some of the others?
Mhm,
Yes. So we'll focus on what I was just mentioning, which is level of effort, an effort
mm,
score. It's one of
mm,
my
mhm,
favorites.
mm,
So it's digging into how easy or difficult, and that drives the why an NPS score may be it, because if it is so difficult to do business with a brand, if it is so difficult to pay or to use a product, as an example, then they're not going to recommend a brand, which is the NPS question. So they're very closely linked, and it's much more tangible level of effort. If you do it right, you can really fix the friction. and make it
Mm.
better.
Hey, folks, this is Jeff Amrine. We want to thank you for tuning in. We sincerely appreciate your time. If you're enjoying the Innovation Junkies podcast, please do us a huge favor. Click the subscribe button right now and please leave us a review. It would mean the world to both of us. And don't forget to share us on social media.
So talk to us, if you will, about the differences in CX in a B2C company versus a B2B company, because you do both. You work a lot in B2B, but you also do CX work in the B2C space. So tell us a little bit about some of the differences you see and anything that you think would be relevant in that regard.
So there are differences, but I want to say the most core important fact that's the same.
Mhm.
People.
Mm. Mhm.
Whether the human is a customer who's buying an iPhone, which is the B2C,
Mhm.
or a customer who is making a decision about a health plan for their employees, so
Mhm.
B2B. You're dealing with people and humans. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's really about walking in your customer's shoes, the human
Mm.
shoes, and
Mhm.
really mapping out what is the desired experience. How will they learn about the offer? How will they buy? In B2B, it's probably more, especially if it's an expensive item, it's probably going to
Mhm.
be a salesperson coming out and
Mhm.
talking to the customer. In healthcare, for example, buying an insurance plan for the employees, it's probably going to be a salesperson speaking to the HR department and helping them make a very important buying decision versus buying something online, a consumer good, e-commerce is very common.
Gotcha.
So the channels are different,
Mhm.
but the key is putting yourself in that human shoes, design the experience, and then here's the where the magic happens in B2B or
Yeah.
B2C. You have to design the experience and then you have to go to your end user, your end buyer, your personas who you design for and validate
Mm.
that what you designed actually meets their needs.
So at the end of the day, something we tell our clients, at the end of the day, people buy from people. Doesn't matter whether they're B2B, B2C, B2B to B2C, or what have you. People are buying from people, and they generally buy from people they know, like, trust, and have a good experience with.
Trust is
Mm.
tremendous.
Mm.
And trust can be built. It it's not always possible to be in person. That is
Mhm.
ideal. We know that. That
Mhm.
human
Sure.
touch, pre-COVID, post-COVID, that doesn't change. But we know that we're getting more sophisticated. And even being on camera here, I feel like I know you because we're seeing each other. So we can
Mhm.
leverage technology to build trust, but it comes from the people.
Are there some particular brands or enterprises that you could talk about that do this particularly well? Ones that you've studied or you see they've got it just right, they have it figured out. What are some good examples?
I would say I'll stay away from the obvious, like Apple, for
Mhm.
example. Um, though there is one thing I do want to highlight about Apple that people might not think about, but it's part of the experience that anybody can do. And that is after you buy and get your product, there's a pivotal moment that people don't think about, which is they give you a half hour session to train you on your new product. So you
Mhm.
schedule 30 minutes on your new product and then you set up a time and they call you. That's value add. And I want people to think about what can you do in your business like that that is not an extra cost. Yes, maybe it's built into the cost originally, but that aside,
Mhm.
there is value add in that buying and that whole experience of onboarding. So, I just wanna bring that
Mm,
out because anybody can
mhm,
do that,
mhm, mhm.
right?
While we're on the Apple conversation, you know, there's this concept that we use with a lot of our clients called customer discovery, where you discover their needs or you anticipate the unmet needs or the business problem that they want to solve, and then you do some customer discovery there to validate that you've actually identified the right problem. Um, Separate from Apple, that that builds things before we even know we need them, right? It's like, I believe it was Ford that said, the famous phrase, "If I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." And so talk a little bit about this concept of market research to discover needs versus the kind of what Apple does to build innovative things before we even know we need them.
Absolutely. It is a must, no matter
Mm,
what your company is, no matter what your brand is. So, as an example, I worked at Verizon, my prior
mm,
job, in product development. I was customer experience, a leadership role within new product development. And what
mhm,
that means is that as products were getting developed in a very agile way, we infuse CX into the process so that we would launch with quality over speed.
mm,
So I would take the prototypes, even before a prototype, we would do concept validation with the personas, the potential buyers. Do you see a need for this? What value do you see? Do you feel? Would you be willing to pay for this value?
mhm, mhm,
Then we'd go into prototype testing and feedback and this iterative stage before huge investments into the new product. And that's where you're able to make sure that you're really building what customers want. And
mhm,
by the way, I caution people, employee feedback is really good, but it
mhm.
cannot replace customer feedback.
Yeah, that's great. Very good.
As
So
you try to build an organization that values customer experience, how do you really attract and retain
mm,
great leadership that's going to make that a priority? I mean, talk about it. But we all know there's this sort of war on talent. How do you find the right people to be in the organization?
I think finding isn't the hard part because there's a lot of people out there looking. The harder part is asking the right questions in the interview process to make sure that you're really hiring the right people. That's where companies fall short.
mm.
And that's low hanging fruit, quite honestly.
What are some of the questions you think we're missing the boat on that you make sure that you build into the interview process or encourage your clients to?
There's a lot of them, but I'll pick one. You need to really test for communication skills
Mhm,
because customer experience is about getting the basics right. And the
mhm,
basics is communication, meaning
mhm,
that a lot of times, especially in supply chain challenges right now, customers are waiting for a response. They want to be no, they want to feel like they haven't been forgotten. So if a sales rep doesn't have the answers, are they still picking up the phone? Are they still telling the customer, I got your back? I don't have the
mhm,
answer right now. Or are they silent because they don't know how to handle the situation?
mhm. It
And you need to identify that up front.
Yeah, it's kind of about just expectation management, right? If they expect you to call them at noon tomorrow, call them at noon tomorrow, even if you don't have the answer to say, "I'm closer, but I need a little more time."
Yes, so you need to really test for how well does your candidate deliver on the promise? What are
Mhm, mhm,
examples that they can demonstrate on that? And test for it without really leading them to that, you know, probing question.
Yeah. I'm curious. We all are reading, and Jeff mentioned the war on talent. This concept of the Great Resignation, where people are choosing to step away from their jobs and might even take lower pay for better quality of life or more amenities or what have you. Are you seeing HR and organizational development departments begin to move into the customer experience world, thinking of their employees as customers, and begin to deploy some of your thoughts and practices there?
Yes and no.
Okay.
There's opportunity for more. There's
Mhm.
opportunity for more partnership. There's opportunity for, and I'm talking about across brands and different people I
Sure.
talk to, not one-sided view, one company per se, but overall in my own research, there's an opportunity when HR does exit interviews to work with your customer experience leaders and collaborate on how both sides care about employee engagement.
Mhm.
There's a bit of a different angle where HR is about benefits and can you work from home or not. CX is about how do you get employees engaged to deliver customer excellence. And they go hand in hand. So there needs to be a real close partnership. And there's such a thing as an internal NPS score and there's a customer
Mhm.
NPS score. How
Mhm.
well are those being married and problem solved for?
Yeah. I could see an entire practice around leadership, right? Of exposing leaders in companies to CX principles, to think about walking a mile in their employees' shoes, and are they an easy place to work? Are they a desirable place to work? Is the experience at the level that it needs to be? And so I was just thinking about it in that regard.
Absolutely. There's
Yeah,
opportunity.
sure. Got it.
Stacey, I'd also be interested in your take on something Jack Welch wrote about in kind of the classic book he wrote, Straight from the Gut, and it was about his leadership experiences at GE. He said that the best people that were customer facing, and he was talking specifically about sales organizations, they tended to look for people that scored high on the empathy scale, that were very
Hmm.
empathetic. I mean, what's your take on that? And I know it's all sometimes difficult to assign traits to what you're looking for, but what's your take on empathy as it relates to customer experience?
Empathy is one of those that was mentioning before you need to test for when you're hiring people. It is a must.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, it's no longer a nice quality, it's a have to behavior
Mhm.
that is essential because people are more impatient, they are less forgiving, they are quick to judge and make changes than ever
Mhm.
before. So if a customer service rep, for example, doesn't sound like they're really understanding the customer's story, but rather sound like they're checking a box and going through
Mhm.
this call script,
Mhm.
the customer's going to feel it and likely make a judgment call, a perception just on that one call, even if they love the product, and potentially
Mhm.
leave.
Yeah.
Has to be
So
authentic, right?
yeah. Yeah, that's right. So as we start to, we could talk to you all day long and dig into this more and more. But for our listeners, as we start to land the plane here, cross industry, cross company size, cross B2B, B2C, give us a couple of what you would call actionable tips. If we've piqued the interest of a leader out there of an organization, large or small, what are a couple of actionable tips that you would give them to take the next steps forward when it comes to customer experience?
Yeah. So let's just talk about get the basics right.
Mm,
One, you need a champion at the top who ensures that CX is a top priority shared by every organization, every department.
mhm,
If you're finance, if you're HR, if you're legal, everybody has a customer experience job, even if it's not in your title. And if you
Mhm.
don't understand how or why, call me because I'll explain to you. Secondly, people are motivated by money. Businesses
Mhm.
are in business to make money. People work hopefully because they love what they do, but we also know that you spend your hours, as my friend Stacy Aaron says, your heart beats
Mhm.
at work because you are trying to afford experiences for your family. So make sure that customer experience is on everybody's objectives.
Mm.
And I hate to say this out loud because it's very debatable, but tie performance objectives, your payout, to how well the company delivers customer excellence. Because if not, people are not going to prioritize the customer pain points. They're
Mhm.
going to focus on other performance key performance indicators, and CX drives loyalty, CX drives revenue growth. And so it's all linked. So I would say make sure that you're driving that performance and connected to customer satisfaction. It's not
Very
the
good.
only way. Money is not the
Right.
only way, but certainly a
Yeah.
factor.
Yeah. So tell our listeners where they can find you.
DoingCXRight.com. I have a podcast. I have a blog, mentoring people in my off hours. I have a full time corporate job. So time is limited, but
Mhm.
when I have capacity, I'm mentoring people so that they can differentiate their
Mhm.
brand personally as a leader and differentiate their company with CX at the forefront and so much
Very
more.
good. Yeah, absolutely. So doingcxright.com, and I encourage you guys to take a look at that blog, 10 lessons from growing up with a Wall Street mom. I believe that was this past summer that you wrote that blog. So look that one up and read it.
Yes.
It's a great read. Jeff, anything you would add?
No, I just wanted to thank Stacy for coming on. If you help the customers win, your company will win, and you as an individual will win. And it's a great message. We're really glad to have you on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
This has been another episode of the Innovation Junkies podcast. Thank you for joining.
Hey folks, this is Jeff Amrine. We want to thank you for tuning in. We sincerely appreciate your time. If you're enjoying the Innovation Junkies podcast, please do us a huge favor. Click the subscribe button right now and please leave us a review. It would mean the world to both of us. And don't forget to share us on social media.